Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Commercialization Success Tools with Wendy Kennedy. Wendy will begin in a few moments, and I'll just give you a brief orientation before she starts. During the webinar, Wendy may ask you to raise your hand. This feature is in your webinar menu on the right side of your screen. It should look like a button with a hand on it, and you should also familiarize yourself with the chat box in your expanded menu. That's where you can ask questions at any time during the webinar, and you may see messages to the group there as well. We're recording today's webinar to post online, and I also encourage you all to let us know how we did in the survey that will appear when the webinar ends. Thanks for joining us today, and let's begin.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Wendy. I'm really thrilled to be here. It's always an exciting time to be back with all of you and with the FLC, so great pleasure to be here. I hope we're going to be able to keep this as interactive as we can. I checked the registration list, and I think I know a good number of you, so great to be with you as well. I would really encourage you, though, to participate. I love to have a good discussion-oriented session and lots of interaction, so don't be shy. If you have a thought, a comment, a question, just go for it. Raise your hand or comment in the question box, as Lauren said. I think that what we really want to do here is keep it informal and really try to speak more to the questions, insights, etc., that we all have. I always say I don't profess to be an expert in anything. I think there's lots of us who are experts, but I'm going to lead the session, and hopefully you will all kind of jump in whenever you want to. I think my plan today is to really perhaps give you a little bit of a different perspective on a commercialization success tool that I call marketing. I think marketing is at the core. Certainly, people talk about a leg of a stool. I think marketing is one leg of a stool when we talk about technology commercialization. And I'm going to share with you in a moment just a little bit of my background, because I think it blends nicely into why I was excited when the FLC said, could I do a topic around marketing? But today what I really want to do is share with you maybe what I will call a different perspective on marketing, one that's very practical, very hands-on, and I think achievable for anyone really. And so I'm going to also share with you tools and techniques that I've developed over the years. And when I say share, at the end of the webinar, I will share with you a link, and you can download much of what you're going to see today. Again, I like to use tools and techniques and templates and checklists and things like that. I know if I'm attending a webinar, I like to get some things to take away. So I think what you can expect today is some of those tools and templates and a roadmap, some stories maybe, a few checklists, and some tips sprinkled throughout. And then at the end, I'll provide you with a link, and you can go and download all of this material, including the slides from the presentation today, and share them. Share them with your team, share them with your staff, share them with anybody who would like them, because I think that that's the whole goal here is information sharing. So what I'd really like to encourage you to do for the next 70 minutes is approach this with an open mind. When I take a webinar, I look for one or two things I could start doing and one or two things that maybe I should stop doing. So think about it from that point of view, and keep an open mind as to what might you try in terms of some of the things that I might describe today. And it's always hard for us to try new things, but approach it with an open mind, like I say. I think that's where you'll get some success and some ideas, maybe one or two that you can move your office forward when it comes to marketing. Okay, so here we go. Well, just one sec, here we go. So as I said, I think it's useful maybe just to begin with a little bit of introduction. As I say, many of you may already know me as the lady with the commercialization toolkit. I've participated in a number of FLC conferences over the years. And the So What, Who Cares, Why You commercialization toolkit is probably what, if you do know a little bit about me, is probably where you would have heard about me. But for today's presentation, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my marketing background. As you can see on the slide, prior to So What, Who Cares, Why You, I actually spent 16 years as a vice president of marketing in 6 different technology startups and had responsibility for a lot of different areas. I think what's important to note today is that these were startups and they didn't have any money. And so marketing was a key strategic lever for them, or for us, I should say, but we didn't have a lot of money to work with. And as you may have seen in the material that went out ahead of the webinar, I'm not really a believer that you need a lot of money to do great marketing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that today. I think that what I really actually formulated these tools and templates and things was when I was a professor of marketing. So I've also spent a little over a decade. Gosh, I sound like I'm 80 years old. But I think that being a professor of marketing in areas like technology marketing and international business and things really allowed me to build my own tool set. And that's what I'm planning to share with you today. Even in our own company here today, we're using these tools because they're very entrepreneurial marketing tools. And I think that whether it's a big lab or whether it's a small lab that we're talking about today, I think we can all use these tools quite effectively. So, first of all, I think, too, this isn't magic, right? I think that often marketing gets a bad rap because it's kind of gray matter, and a lot of tools and techniques and Twitter and Facebook and all these new marketing vehicles that are coming on the horizon really stir the pot and make it difficult to really see, how do you do marketing and what is it? And I think often, as I say, it gets a bit of a bad rap, but I believe that there's a science to it. And here's my message. Marketing should not be an activity. Marketing should be a strategy. And I learned that during my time as a VP. You have to do things that impact the company or impact your organization. And when you don't have a lot of money, you really have to think first and think hard about the strategy. And I can tell you that, over my 25-plus years in business, that not many people approach marketing that way. And I think that's why there's a gray matter and a cloud that sometimes appears over marketing. But I think what marketing is really about is about the choices you make about what to do. And a few things can make a big impact. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So what do marketing and commercialization have in common? I think that I wove those two things together today: commercialization success tools and marketing your technology transfer office. And why did I call the session this? It's because I really believe that at the end of the day, the thing that they most have in common is this notion of value. How are you creating value for your stakeholders? And that's the fundamental question that marketing should be helping us to answer. And I think that commercialization then isn't just about discovering great technologies or new treatments or therapies. Commercialization is really about discovering and communicating the business value of that innovation. So it's not enough to have great technologies. We need to get the story told to the market that's actually going to take these things and commercialize them. So I think that that's where the whole notion of marketing comes in. And so today, I thought long and hard about the best way to kind of compact all the things I wanted to share with you in about 75 minutes. And I said, here is how I think we're going to break this out, or how I propose we break this out, is that we're going to talk a little bit about a concept that I call spaghetti marketing. And then we're going to jump into how to help you in your office build a marketing roadmap, whether you're a large lab with a lot of staff or a small lab with maybe 2, 3 people. Can we build a roadmap for you, at least start to give you some tools and templates to be able to build that roadmap? So first, let's set the table. We're going to talk about spaghetti. We better set the table. So first thing is, and this is where I was saying to you, I want you to think a little differently. First, you have to think that we all have customers, right? Now, the notion sometimes of a customer is a difficult one for people who are in government and public sector organizations. But stop and just think about it for a minute and look at your world through a little bit of a different lens. Who are the people that you want to attract? And I think that's an important message, and we're going to spend some good time on this, and I'm going to, as I say, give you some techniques to really sharpen your pencil. The core of results, I believe, will come from getting clarity on how to answer that question. What customers to serve and what products to offer. And again, I would say we all have products and we all have a bottom line. It's just whether it's a private sector organization or government, the bottom line may be different in terms of the metrics, but we all need to produce results. And so I think that there's much of what we're going to look at that can really help to get a finer point on the answers to these questions. The third question being what message to send, and then what vehicles to deploy. So getting results from any marketing effort is going to require that you're going to look at these questions and look at your organization, your office, from the outside in. And so, the lens of the people that you want to engage. And so let's begin by maybe just a little bit of levity. In my day, and I don't say that I'm perfect, so in my day I experienced a lot of what I'd call spaghetti marketing. And I think that I was guilty of being a spaghetti marketer. And I think first let's understand what spaghetti marketing is. It's stirring up a bunch of different marketing activities in hopes that something will stick. So, all the different trendy things that are coming out today, and Web 2.0 and all of those things, it's, picking up on different types of marketing activities and trying them. And I've been guilty of that and falling into that trap. I guess my first question, and Lauren, maybe you can watch the hands go up, is do any of you think, or would any of you be willing to admit that you've been guilty of some spaghetti marketing? Let's just see. Just give me a show of hands. Come on now. Don't be shy.
People are starting to raise their hands. We're getting to be so far about just over 10%. If you still want to decide, keep raising.
There's still some coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's fine. It's fine. So I think we're seeing what I would maybe hope isn't the right word, but certainly what I would expect is that we all are guilty of this. We all do things, and we fall out of alignment with our plans, and we start to do things because we think, well, other people are doing it, so maybe we should start a blog, or maybe we should be on Facebook, or maybe we should, tweet. I hear this from my staff all the time. I think we should be on Twitter. And so it's a bad habit in marketing that we fall into of actually trying different things, and we lose patience and we try more things. The danger with this, though, folks, is that you see all these. You see, how many times do you go to a website and, watch this as you go, the next time you visit a website. Look at all the vehicles. Look at all the things you can use, Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, YouTube. Some people say, well, these are free. Nothing's free. I mean, it all takes time and effort and energy to manage. But the fact is that, here we have some more. Look at all of these, newsletters, infographics. There's no shortage of vehicles. And so when you add these to the sauce, so to speak, and you start to look at it, you can quickly see how spaghetti marketing happens. These things come across our desk or we read about them, or we hear that our, a lab that we think of as a lab that's doing really well is using an iPad app. So we should actually create our own iPad app to showcase our technologies. And that's the trap of spaghetti marketing. And so what happens is you start to develop a lot of what I call bad habits, because you're letting these vehicles drive you. And you have to turn it the other way around. You have to drive the vehicles. And you have to drive the choice of these vehicles from a strategy. The big problem with spaghetti marketing is the things that you see on the screen. And if we're talking about, not having a lot of money to do marketing, then you do not want to do spaghetti marketing, because it's very, very costly and it's very time consuming. And so, again, you can kind of sense where I'm leading to here. There's a better way to do this. I think that, the fact of the matter is that it can become a real liability to your office. And so if there's one goal I have for today, it's to really help you stop the spaghetti marketing. Stop being activity-driven and start being strategy-driven. The thing you want to avoid, and as I say, I want to give you some tips as we go along, is you'll notice that what I call the 5 common mistakes to avoid. What you want to avoid in any of your marketing is, what I call sprinkling, where you actually are doing a lot of things. You're taking a little bit of money and you're spreading it everywhere. So you're going to do, or you're putting your resources across a variety of those marketing vehicles that we just looked at. You also want to watch that you don't just follow the pack, right? That because someone else is doing it and you read about them in a newsletter, you think that maybe that's something that could work for you. I think it's always good to be open to new ideas, but you always want to look at them through more of a strategic lens. And the others, as you can probably guess, the flavor of the month and the it's free, right? Remember that. Nothing comes for free. We have a blog that we use here at WKI. Boy, yeah, it's free, but boy, it takes a lot of content to feed it. So someone has to invest time to feed that. And I think, too, it's kind of this arm's length marketing, where you're not actually engaging closely with your target customers. You're kind of just out there, and there's no connection that you're building. I think that these are some of the classic mistakes that people make, and I think that hopefully, like I say, by the end of our time today, we'll have a little bit of remedy if you have some of these that are going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to almost turn things upside down now. The marketing vehicle discussion that we just had is the place normally that people start. But I think it should be the last thing that people look at. And if you want to really be making an impact in technology commercialization, and even just with your initiatives in your office, you want to start with the roadmap and then ask, what vehicles should be part of our roadmap as the 4th question. And so always, 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 the whole notion of where everything begins is, what's the success metric? Remember I said earlier we all have a bottom line? So I think, again, and particularly for the people who manage the office that are on the call today, people who are in leadership roles, we really need to give staff and give our team a sense of what's important. It's dangerous to say all the things that I've listed here on the slide are equally important. What's the goal? What is it that we're trying to do now first? And can we break out and say, right now our priority is, we want to get out into the community and identify new licensees. Do we want new ones, or do we want our existing licensees to take more from us? Do we want more CRADAS, right? And if so, what would be the nature of those? Do we want new? You notice I'm using the word customer. I encourage you to use the word customer. These are people who will make a commitment to us either to license it or pay us money for some co-development arrangement. They're customers. Do we want to reach new types of customers? Right? So it really, this is the starting point for making an impact with your marketing is what is it that you're trying to achieve? And it's always very enlightening to ask your team, what is it we're trying to achieve? And to see the kinds of responses that come back. Because we need to get alignment here as a team in our office about what is the metric. Like, what is the main metric, I'd say, that we're trying to move? When I was in startups, we had a CEO that believed passionately in the idea of the back of the envelope. And so he would always say, you need to carry in your coat pocket an envelope that has the metrics that you are trying to move. What is it that you're trying to deliver on? And throughout a year, and particularly it's perfect timing for us to be having this webinar, because as you look ahead to 2014, if you were to identify your metrics, and I say, maybe two, maybe one, but maybe two metrics would be ideal. I think, depending on the amount of resources that you have, but we're not talking about 7. I think, again, remember, what's important? What are we really trying to do when it comes to moving technologies from our office out to make an impact in society? What's the goal? And, those metrics can change with time, but I would say that you want to be able to have a real focal point here that people can rally around to say, this is what we're trying to do. Even that alone starts to help marketing be much more impactful because people look at that metric and live and breathe it. So start here and maybe try that technique of the back of the envelope. And I think why I've adopted it and why I find it very useful is I'm going to show you later on that I run all of our marketing through what I call a 90-day horizon. And this is very useful because I look at the metric for that 90-day horizon. And I watch the envelope then to say, is that contributing? Anything people talk about in my office, I say, is that contributing to my metric? And it really helps you to assess all that noise that comes at you in your office about, maybe we should do X vehicle or Y vehicle. You can now assess it quickly. But the envelope's a great technique because it's a nice little reminder. So key to starting all of this is to really start to know strategically what is the metric you're trying to move. And then this is the strategic umbrella that I live with and have used for many, many years when it comes to marketing. Even when I was a professor, to me it's got to be real. It's got to be practical and hands-on. And so I've lived by these principles. And in building the marketing roadmap, there's really, to me, only 4 questions. And these are the 4 questions that you see on the screen. And we're going to look at each of these now. And I'm going to, as I say, inside each of these, give you some takeaways to think about.
Wendy, so, before you really get into this, I want to share a couple of questions that I've got from Chris.
Okay.
So the first question is, how do you get highly targeted lists and leads for an outbound marketing campaign without having to buy really expensive, high-quality lists? And as well, for a small operation with a small budget, is there an automated e-marketing software to help act as your virtual marketing team without having to hire more staff or pay a lot of money to manage the marketing strategies?
Mm-hmm. Okay, good questions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the first question when we come into the vehicles to deploy. But let me just first say that the heart and soul, Chris, and the heart and soul for all marketing, I think, is that leads database. And it's not, and the one thing you can always count on me is to be very opinionated. So I will, maybe a good or bad thing, but I'll tell you my answer to this. I would never, I would never buy a list. I just never would, because it's about it's about the quality of the list. The quality, if you're doing great marketing, in other words, if you're doing those first 3 things well for your office, you will find that people, what you need is people to self-identify, to sign up, to say, I want what Chris is actually putting out there. He's got a compelling message, and I'm in his target group, and I want to be kept aware. And I'm going to show you some examples of labs here in a moment that I think are doing really great marketing and making people want to sign up. But I think the list buy is a very slippery slope to be on, because you're getting a lot of unqualified and a lot of people who are not interested in what you have. I know it's hard work, and I know it takes a lot of marketing muscle, like your own muscle, but you've got to, put out a message to a target group that they say they want to opt in. Just as an example, just a very basic example, the people who are on this call today, I will not take their emails. Maybe you'd think that would be a great way, right? I could put them in my database and I could market to them, but you haven't asked for that. So you're not as quality a lead until you tell me that you want to be part of my community. So maybe you don't have as many people, but you know what? The people that you will end up with on your list will be quality. And in today's marketing, that's what you need. I think we have to get away from the idea that just because we have a big, big list, it's great. It comes at a price, and you'll find that people will opt out. So I prefer that you'd spend your time thinking about, how do I get people to opt in, which leads me, and I'll give you some stuff to think about, Chris, hopefully, as I say, as we dive in here. With regard, just because it's an easy question to answer, with regard to the what tool you can use, there's lots of low-cost email marketing, CRM tools that are available out there. And I do agree with you. I think that, for example, we use one. You don't have to use this one. Just Google, small business CRM tools. We use a tool called Constant Contact, and we're quite happy with it because it's for the everyday person. And so I think for the folks on this call that are looking for tools like that, it serves the purpose, and it's like $30 a month. So those kinds of tools definitely very, very effective. Okay, so moving right along then, I think that, even though those questions are related to vehicles, and we will look a little bit more at some of those vehicles, I think you really, if you're going to build a good, to frame it around Chris's question, if you're going to build a good database and you're going to get the right kinds of lists or cultivate people into your database, is what I always say, then you really want to spend time here and think about, who are you trying to serve? So what are the segments that you actually want to have coming into your office? And I'm going to tell you that most of the time, this is the area that all of us don't spend enough time on. And I would encourage all of you to do this as a team with your office. So who are the customers? Who are the people outside on the external, the industry everybody talks about, people in industry that are going to license and we're going to do development agreements with and things like that. So if you had to actually cluster, sort, and organize them, who are the target groups for your lab, and how do you create value for them? And so I think, think about this in terms of the problems that you solve for them. What kinds of problems do the external organizations have? Someone who's going to license maybe a piece of technology from you. What problem does that solve for them? And can you describe it in their language? Because I think we're very, the criticism of all of us who want to do marketing is we become very internally focused. A good example of this, and I'll say this later, is take a look at your website. Is it written from your point of view, or is it written from this target customer's point of view? Some of the best ones, I looked at many of the people's websites that are on this call. I looked and had a good review of, not everyone, but a good number. And there's some really great ones, but there's also a lot of them that look like brochures. And so how well do you really know your customers? Because I think that for all of us, we can never know enough. And so I think the other thing, too, is we bundle and cluster them as if they're all one group, and they're not. You may find that there's different types of customers that are going to license your technology. They may be, from certain industries, or they may be just certain sizes of organizations. And there's others that will come to you for maybe if you do verification services, let's pick something different, or if you provide some types of co-development services or prototyping. So you want to look at these organizations that you want to attract and start to cluster like-minded groups together. That's the starting point for making all of this marketing have an impact. Put like-minded groups together into segments. And I think that that's, it's another way to kind of look at it is to think about who are you solving problems for and who has similar problems and would see themselves as, like other organizations with that problem, and can you cluster, sort, and organize them into groups. And one of the things, and one of the tools that I want to share with you is a tool out of our commercialization toolkit, because even though this is used by researchers, it's also a great tool for all of us to be able to use just as a market segmentation tool. And so, as we talk about who can you solve a problem for, if you put, see on the tail here, if you put your, what I call unique assets, what's special about your office? What kinds of things are you providing to industry that you think they should be coming to you for? So start there. You need to have a uniqueness that you can talk about to the market. So start with that on the tail. And then start to look at identifying, as you can see in here, all the different segments of people that might care. And so these might be, as I say, broad industry groups across the big bold text you see here. And then you slice and dice it on the branches of the fishbone. And this is a great tool, and I encourage you to do this with others in your office. I have this up online. You can download it as a template. But it's a great way for you and your team to start to really, I'll call it, dissect your target customers, because you can't paint them all with the same brush. And what you're offering in your office, in a moment we're going to talk about products, what you're offering in your office, like from your office in terms of IP and these verification services or consulting services or CRADAS, these are all different things that different types of customers care about. And so the starting point first is to, let's make sense of who really are the customers out there. Who are the organizations? If you don't like the word customer, then replace it with organizations we'd like to engage with. But they are customers, because these people are either going to license the technology and make a commitment to actually deploying it, or they're going to buy services from you. And so, or they're going to enter into a joint development agreement with you. So they're exchanging something of value with you. So let's spend some time. I'm very passionate about this. I hope you can tell, because I think that this is at the heart of it all. Is if we don't spend time here really understanding the customers that we're trying to talk to, then we don't have enough insight to be able to make good decisions about marketing. And and I think there's where you can quickly see when you look at some people's marketing vehicles and the way that they are messaging to the market. For someone like me who spent a lot of years doing this, I can tell when someone has actually taken the time to invest in discovering their customers. So that's what I hope for you, is discover your customers. And this is a tool as well that I encourage you to download. This is, again, a way to just help you. And again, this shouldn't just be one person in your office. This can be a great collective effort that you build over time to just say, do we really know these people? Do we really know who these different groups are? And start to profile them in terms of, who actually makes the decision to enter into a licensing agreement. Is it the VP of R&D in that organization, or is it the VP of new products? Or is it, the manufacturing liaison? So really understanding, drilling down and getting into the meat and potatoes of the details. People say the devil's in the details. The devil is in the details. And I think that if nothing else, if you do nothing else on today's call, I would say do this. Really start to step into the shoes of your target customers, the people in industry that you're trying to engage, and start to develop a dialogue. The best, lowest cost marketing thing you can do, call them, right? Call them. Talk to them. One of the things I'll tell you, the best thing I ever did when I was a professor, the best thing I ever did when I was starting a new program was start an advisory board. And I think start an advisory board, of customers, people who will come and be part of, sharing best practices and giving you insights. That's one of the most low-cost things you can do from a marketing point of view is invite people to participate and give you insights. And we can talk more about that later, but I think that's a very powerful tool. So spend time here. I think we can all learn more about the customers that we serve. It's the lifeblood. And I think so is it with number 2, which is, remember I said at the opening, we all have products. And I think often we organize our products and our services in a way that fits our internal systems and not the way that's natural for the customer or the person on the outside who's actually coming to try to do business with your lab. And so in this area, I want you to just spend a little bit of time and think about your own offerings now and what do you sell. You may have some services that must be offered for, just general public good. But what I'd like you to do here is think about the IP and the assets that you have that you're trying to accelerate out to market for commercialization. And what are the product and service offerings that, exist for that purpose. And, the technique, a technique that I think is useful for you, and again, it's all stuff I've used, is to take, a sheet of paper and put, 3 big circles like I've done here across the page and start to create buckets of offerings. And this is, if you're doing this already and you feel like you've got a good grasp on your offerings out to the market, this is just a great way to audit that and test it. But in my experience, I find, again, it's like the spaghetti marketing. I think we get a lot of things in our quote-unquote product offering, a lot of services that maybe are not the products that we want to sell. They just happen to get lumped in there because someone built it for somebody else, and there was someone that wanted you to do some prototyping, maybe is a bad example, but that you actually now have that as part of your offering. I think what you want to do is get a really good look at your product offering. What is it that's, list out everything that you consider to be available from your office. And really start to look at, for those customers now, the different customer segments, what products should we offer, and how would those be bundled? How could they be wrapped together to create a complete solution? Again, I've seen on some great, in some labs, some great efforts at wrapping a solution bundle together for a customer group. And I think that's the kind of thinking that we want to have here is, can we actually build, the whole product that a customer wants from us? And putting names on them that resonate with the customers and in branding them so that they sound more like a solution for that target segment. And I know that sometimes we're selling, particularly if we're selling or bringing to market new types of drugs and protocols and things like that, that they're going to be called what they're going to be called. But I think it's useful to still think about what is the, how does that customer, right? Like how do they actually want to take that from us? And is there a certain amount of hand-holding in that relationship in licensing that should be part of the offering that we are putting into that product and bundling it together? I know this sounds all very abstract, so let me show you a little bit about what I mean. You know, of course, this is the Naval Air Warfare Center, and I know we have some people on the call, but when I came to this site, I said, bingo. This is a great example of what I mean by productizing. First of all, this was the first page that I landed on. And so I think that the nice thing about this is, and the text may be a little small to read, but I think, you know, you can get the point, is, you know, rapid prototyping, you know, whoops, apologies. Rapid prototyping, test and evaluation resources, partnering with us. I just thought that was another making it very approachable. And then just the different technology. So I'm fully aware that it may just be sometimes that you have to put the technology there and have people. But once I click inside there, again, it should be very customer-centric about what is the value proposition that you're giving to me as an industry person related to that technology. And so I think they've done a really fantastic job, as well as up on the top right, even just from, you know, I want to just capture some of the marketing elements here in terms of, you know, top stories and, you know, things like that really bring their site to life. And again, at the top corner, you can see here, very small text, I realize, but you can go and check it out, the Naval Air Warfare Center, and just see partnering with us. I didn't see that a lot whenever I did my journey around the sites, but excellent job, like making it very approachable in terms of, you know, come to us and here's kind of the benefits. So anyway, so that's what I mean by productizing. And this one as well, I thought this was fantastic, is ready to sign licenses. This is just an example, mind you, but I think this is a very creative approach for certain types of technologies coming out of Sandia National Labs, that it's bundled. This is what I mean by bundling into solutions. And so certain technologies can be accelerated out to market with these ready-to-sign licenses. And then, you know, all the instructions are here as well. So again, these are very, very market-facing types of solutions, or bundles, as I would say, product bundles. And then down below here, you can see they've actually listed, you know, here's the ones we have right now. So, as I say, very customer-focused, and as I said, using language and written in a way that's speaking to the market. And so this products to serve area, that question, takes a little bit of thinking, right? A little bit of mapping on a whiteboard and looking at what could we offer. And I would just say again, folks, you know, this type of a technique, this takes time, right? Not that time isn't money, but this takes time. This makes a huge impact when you can get clarity about the different types of bundles that you have for the different customer segments and match those two together. You know, you start to get some magic happening and some impact, because things like these ideas start to unfold as well. So I hats off to these last two examples, because I think that they're right on. The third question then becomes what message to send. So we've gone from what customers to target, what products to offer, and then what message to send to those markets. And so again, I'll just reinforce this. Before we worry about databases and Twitter and websites, etc., we need to really nail these down. So particularly now, what message should we be sending? And building a message framework, as I call it, building a map. So map here, as you see on the screen, is about messaging, audience, and promise. And so, again, what we do now is we weave together those first two questions, and we start to say, all right, so what message do we want to send to the audiences that we have been identifying as the ones that would be the best for us to cultivate more relationship or business with? And so I'm all about, clarity in the message that you send and what you want to say. And I think it's important for all of us to remember, and I remind myself of this daily, is that there's an old saying that when you're getting tired of your message and you think it's old, the market will just be starting to catch on to it. So the moral of that story is, repetition, and have a message that is clear and compelling, and then repeat it. So be careful not to change messages too often. Spend time nailing it down again with clarity. And I think that often we try to say too much. So less is more here, right? Less is more. And I built a template years ago because of trying to get myself committed to the fact that less is more. And it's really this idea about committing to 3 words. So if you had to commit right now, if I was sitting across the table from you and I said, put down 3 words that really describe the essence of your value proposition and your promise, right? Promise being your commitment out to the market. What would be the 3 words that you would use to describe your office? And maybe a different way to look at it, too, is to say, what would you like the 3 words? In other words, would you like to now try to align your office around this message and create your office to deliver on that message? So it can be today, or it could be in future and moving towards this message. So not to get too complicated, I just think at the end of the day, you need 3 words. And you need 3 words that, as I always say, you can hang your hat on. 3 words that you can back up and say, our commitment is this, and this is what we want to be known for. And so I just put 3 words into these light bulbs just to kind of make the point. You don't want phrases, you want words. And then from the words, we move into the messaging framework. And so this is now, you can see we're getting down to more precision each time. We started very high level, right? And now we're down into what message to send. And so the next question, if you remember back to our umbrella, is what vehicles to use. So before we decide on any tools, any Twittery, webby, anything, right? Do anything with events or trade shows or seminars or webinars, we've got to have a framework. What is the message we're putting out through those vehicles? And so this template asks you to just identify those 3 words and then substantiate them. And you can change what you'd like to change in terms of the points here down the left-hand side. I'm just giving you some examples. The essence of this framework is that you have to now defend your 3 words. And it can be through proof points. It can be perhaps through a customer endorsement or a testimonial from someone that has already used your services. It can be, there's nothing better than some external third-party endorsements. Or it could just be evidence to support the claims from certification bodies and things like that. It really depends on the word that you choose and the type of evidence that you want to put into your marketing message to send out to the world. But again, clarity here is so powerful. You don't have to tell everything to the world at once. I think we want to say, what is it that will really resonate? What kinds of words will resonate with our target audiences, our target, and I use the word audience just to be a little bit more inclusive here. There may be a number of segments that you have that you're trying to reach, but what words will resonate? And if you want to really highlight capabilities that you have, what word would you choose to really put an umbrella over that and then support it with the proof points? And as I say, it can be useful as well to get your team engaged here, to look for proof points inside your organization by talking to the people that are doing the research, talking to people delivering those product services. A lot of times our proof points don't get talked about, and someone may have won an award, or someone, they may have been recognized because of the quality of the prototyping service, but they don't tell you. So sometimes you have to also go looking inside your organization to build out your proof points for your messaging. But look here for really solid, specific claims. And it's not designed to be, as you can tell, it's not designed to be a document. It's designed to be, when you download this, you'll see it's just a Word file, but it's a table. And what we're trying to do here is synthesize the message, because at our next stage, we're going to have to take this message and put it into vehicles. And so we need this to be captions almost that invite people now to want to talk to your office and want to learn more about it, as opposed to learning everything about it in this document. It's what's the snapshot. And as I say, I think I've said this before, but I think what we're after here are words, 3 words, that really highlight your uniqueness and capabilities in your lab, but also resonate with those people in the target audience. So I've used this a lot. I can only tell you, try it. I find it works really well because it forces a discipline, and it forces us to make choices about what's important, and forces our whole team now to rally around. And I guess on a related note, the one thing I would say is these kinds of tools and frameworks that I'm sharing with you really engender sometimes heated discussion. And that's a good thing, right? Because out of that will come, again, more clarity and alignment amongst your team about what you're doing. And those things are always great things. So I think that I encourage that. I think that you don't want to do this in a vacuum. You want to do this by involving as many people as you can and in helping to shape and mold that. So as I say, again, that framework is up in the is up online. All right, so from those 3, we come down to now, we come to the area where most people begin, actually. And I think we know now that this is the place that you want to, come to almost at the end of your strategic thinking about marketing. And I'll show you in this section, because I know that there's an interest in this, I'll show you in this section some low-cost, high-impact marketing vehicles that I'm using now and that I've used in my career. I know that we're all about that in terms of finding ways to be effective at low cost. But I also, that maybe it's the professor in me, but I also want to make sure we don't lose sight of this. We don't want to continue with our bad habits, right, of just doing these vehicles. I think we need that preceding message as well. So maybe just to start this discussion, Lauren, we can start by polling the group in terms of maybe some of these things. I'll just pick a few off here, and we'll just do as we did before and get you either to jump in with questions or just raise your hand. How many of you right now are using webinars? Let's start with that, because we're all on a webinar. How many of you use webinars?
And at this point, I do want to mention as well, if you're on your iPhone, iPad, or anything like that on the webinar, you can feel free to type your answers. Some of those may not have the hand-raising option.
Okay. Okay. Or how many of you are using Twitter? Do we see any, Lauren?
Yep, so we're about 10 to 15% for each of those, it looks like.
Okay, so how many of you have a blog? Now, I don't mean the blog just generally, because I know we have some big labs. I mean, how many technology transfer offices have a blog that they actually manage? Because I know that, for places like NIH and the EPA and places like that. I mean, there's lots of the bigger umbrella that have a blog.
So far, no blogs. We have a message board on LinkedIn.
Ah, okay. LinkedIn is a great, LinkedIn can be a great tool, and I think I have, I have LinkedIn in here, and it can be a great tool as well. And I think particularly for the types of things we're talking about today, folks, I think LinkedIn, again, I like to get off the fence and not be wishy-washy. I think LinkedIn can be even better than something, say, like Facebook or Twitter. It's interesting, the Twitter they were talking about it on CNN last week, being the growth that they're experiencing in terms of the number of subscribers. But the interesting statistic that they spoke about is that the fastest growing subscriber base are people over the age of 60. So again, we always have to be careful with these vehicles and make sure they're matched up with the types of people that we're trying to reach. But I think, right now, if we go back to our first three questions and our roadmap, I think that we can make better choices about these vehicles to use and evaluate them based upon their ability to reach our target audience that we're trying to reach. And a technique I've used in trying to shape and make decisions, and again, remember what I was saying, and again, I'm not saying this so categorically just because I think I know everything. I'm just saying my experience is that I believe that, this whole thing about not sprinkling, less is more. So pick a few that really are the ones that your target customers like, and you can even ask them. A lot of people still like case studies and two-pagers when it comes to technologies. So I think the thing we can do better, at least I know I can do better always, is the way I present them to the customer. So that it's capturing the right kinds of information, because people have, less time nowadays. So can we make our case studies even more impactful? I think that's a better discussion to be having than we're going to do a lot. We're going to do blogs. We're going to do a whole bunch of things. So how I survive all of these vehicles coming at me is a technique that I call the big buses. And putting your effort into a few key things. So I always say and I said this when I was a VP, and I say it even today in my current business, I say, what big buses are we driving? And that means, what are the big vehicles that we are pushing on for the next 90 days? And we may push on a bus and I'll just move ahead here. I hope you like my buses. We may push on a bus for 6 months because it's a good bus that's making an impact. And so we're choosing a vehicle, in other words, and we're driving our messages. You can see all these metaphors, my apologies. We're driving our messages, our 3 words, through these big buses. And so that's the starting point for really getting great impact with the customers, is to be able to look at, it might be a 90-day horizon. I'm a 90-day type of person. I like to run my marketing on 90-day horizons. Watch it. Watch how my metric is changing. Excuse me. Are we moving it in the right direction? And really push on a few key vehicles for a period of time. And I just caution you on one thing, though. Just because I use 90 days doesn't mean you should. You could actually use it longer. Remember what I said. Messages sometimes are just taking hold and we're thinking we should change them. So it takes a while for your market, your audience, to get in sync with you. You have to hit them with your vehicles several times. But I think this technique has worked for me, and it's particularly worked well for me with staff, to be able to keep us all aligned that we're going to push on some things this quarter, and this is what they are, and we give them a name. And I say 3 buses. If you're a small lab, maybe you have 1 bus. But again, it's that clarity about what's our focus and what's our thrust.
Wendy, we have a question coming in from Tom. How can you set metrics to measure the outcome from a big bus?
So with the big bus, if I'm, for example, saying that we're going to have one of our big buses we're pushing on in January will be a webinar series, and we're going to push on that. And so for us, we look at the metric on that about, and this comes back to Chris's comment earlier in the presentation about leads. So the metric for us on that bus is actually to bring in new target customers into our organization, and so, and to be blunt, to bring in leads, as Chris mentioned. So we'll be metricing our webinars based on that, and I think that again, it goes back, Tom, to what's the metric, the big metric you're trying to move. Our big metric is to bring in new customers, or that's the big metric, and this one is now a vehicle that's helping contribute to that. So you want that kind of alignment from that, the big organizational metric right down to the bus metric and what vehicles to be using to drive that metric. So I hope that that answers the question. That's why I say sometimes you'll have to go longer than 90 days. But what I like to do is monitor it, measure it on a 90-day horizon, and if we want to go again on it, then we do. We go again on it for the next 90 days. And so that works quite well. And I think it also gives your team a sense of priorities. Because again, in measuring your staff and things like that, and just monitoring, again, what should we all be focused on? And to me it's also, and not to get off track here a little, but to me it's about getting your team focused on putting their energy in the, what pedals to push, pushing on the right things. And so it's as important, this 90-day window, to keep them focused on keep pushing this message and keep pushing it through this vehicle, and don't get distracted, right? So if you're spending your time doing new brochures, just as an example, and our vehicle is webinars, then we have a problem. Or if you're spending time updating the website, and that's 50% of your time, and we're saying our metric is new customers, and we're doing a webinar program, we need to get the resources aligned. So that's why the big bus, and I think it became a shorthand for our team. What, every beginning of every quarter and end of every quarter, how did we do? All right, let's measure. Here we go again. All right, what buses are we driving now in Q2? And it becomes it gets an energy and a momentum all of its own. And and as I say, it really makes marketing much more tangible for people, as opposed to just all those activities, right? There's a roadmap. So.
And we have a couple people asking about when and how you measure what's success or failure, how you know when you need to change, what kind of benchmarks there are. We have several questions coming in about that.
Okay. Let's go back. I think that in each of these, it's a question of, it's a tough question just to be, I always like to be specific, but that's a tough one to be specific on, because it depends on the vehicle that you're going to use, and what is, what's the metric that you're trying to drive, and how many people are actually working on that. So let me just say this. I think that you need to start out at the beginning of the quarter, if it's the quarter, by saying how many how many new prospects, let's keep on the same trail with the webinar, how many new prospects do we want to have signed into our database by the end of this 90 days? And depending upon that number, if it's 10, if it's 50, I always think, though, and I guess this is, again, a personal opinion, I think we are always we're overzealous in how many we will sign up. So I think in most cases with marketing, I think you have to be aware that it takes a little while for this message to get out there, and it takes, and when I say a little while, you have to get repetition here with the, if we had just done one email outreach for this webinar, we probably would have had 15 people. So I think it's, again, just realize that. It takes a lot of effort, and it depends on the amount of effort that you're going to put into this bus. And so if you want to drive 100 new signups into your database every month, I would say that that's aggressive. You're going to really have to be putting quality content out there, and if it's webinars or if it's brochures or two-pagers, it's not how shall I say? It's not 500 you're going to get in a month. And I know that I'm maybe some of you are saying, well, we think we can. I'm just trying to temper enthusiasm here. It needs to start rolling, and I think deciding on the metric really has to be something that you're saying, what are the resource commitments we're going to make to this over the next 90 and 180-day period. Again, just personal experience, our experience is that we spend an awful lot of time targeting and being very targeted with one-to-one relationships. And I want to not lose sight of the fact we want to talk about that. I know that many of you are interested in these big, broad vehicles, but I think there's a lot of merit for you in one-to-one, marketing approaches. And let me just go there for a little bit, and we can have some more discussion about metrics. Maybe if I can move you to think a little differently about some of these. Coming back to the real engine, if you will, and I think that, again, this tone was raised earlier in the presentation about CRM systems and lead generation and things like that. This really is the fuel for your buses. The fuel that makes marketing hum is this database. And it's not about, as I say, I think the old days of buying lists and finding people and dumping them into your CRM are, I think, really behind us. I think it's really about finding the right types of target customers, pushing out high-quality messages and content. If I just took your name today and just started spamming you, what would you do to me? You would unsubscribe. And so that's a lot of effort that your office will expend to have me, have someone unsubscribe. So I would, go with more of a mindset that says, what marketing things are we what vehicles are we going to use to have people opt in, to have people want to be part of our community? And so it's an ongoing, in our office and maybe in your offices as well, it's an ongoing metric, adding quality people, quality meaning people who are in our target zones. At the risk of maybe being too personal, I would say that we don't worry as much about the size of our database maybe as others do. It's not about the size of the database. It's about the quality of the people who are in the database. So think about that for yourselves. Do you have a database of decision makers? Do you have a database of people that want to do agreements with you? Then you have gold. If you have a big database full of all kinds of different people of shapes and sizes, you got a lot of waste in there. So, I'm a very customer-focused, sales-driven marketer, so that is why I make this statement. But I think that this CRM tool, and picking, and as I say, there's lots of low-cost ones out there, but this can be, and I encourage you, it should not be a single database that just one person holds on their desktop. This needs to be a shared environment where we are all contributing into that CRM tool and keeping those customer records and prospect records, even more importantly, up to date. And every time we get a business card, every time we get a newsletter sign up, that person ends up into that CRM system. I think the other thing is that all of us, like one vehicle we all use and that we should all continue to use is the website. And I just want to show you a few examples here. Is that the website really is your doorway. Nowadays, it's all about that, and it speaks volumes. The way your website is structured speaks a lot about the way you work and your culture, your approachability by industry people. People always look at the website to take their cues. So if you can only focus on one bus, I would make it this. And I'm always pushing people here on my team to make sure that the website engages people to want to be part of our database. Get them part of our community. If we've been working to get them to our website, let's take them the full loop. Let's make sure we're inviting them to come into our community and download things and sign up for things. I mean, it's not enough to just say to people, just sign up for our monthly newsletter anymore. You have to really show people that you've got that quality insight that you're going to share with them. And then people say, all right, I want to be part of this group. I want to be kept informed. And so, I think that one of the things, as I say, I spent a good bit of time and went around and just had a little peek, look-see at some websites of all of the different labs. And just a little bit of my observations. And again, I know I'm generalizing, but just think about your own sites for a minute. A lot of times I found it very hard to find out where to go to do business. I persevered to try to figure out. So really look at your own site, your own technology transfer area, and say, are you making it easy for people to find you and find where they need to go? These are just fundamental things, folks, that will make a huge impact in your marketing efforts. So, forget all those other vehicles that we're, getting caught up with. This one, boy, it can make a big impact if you just make it easy. I found there's a lot of sites that do focus on, let me tell you about what we do. And I would flip it a little again and say to you, what about if you were to now message, take your 3 words, take your target customers, your message framework, and start to put on your web pages more about what about them and what's in it for them, and how can you help a company or someone that needs your services, or like we saw with the naval air warfare, like how can you kind of show that you want to do business with them? It's a different mindset. I think also, and this is just, again, a simple thing you can fix, there's lots and lots and lots of text on your sites. And I don't know about you, but I think, let me just move forward here for a minute. If I was to show you this, and then I was to show you this, it's human behavior, folks. This page has got some nice, it's got a picture, which I think is fabulous. It's engaging. I think the nice thing is, and I know this is a big lab, but it doesn't matter. I mean, this is a picture. You could get that stock image for nothing. I mean, we could all build a site like this. Replace this word, latest blogs, with something else. But you notice how it's chunked out. Information is in bite-sized amounts. It's not just one big, and look at the font size here. I hope I've blocked out the innocent to protect them, but my point is this is just one example. It's human behavior. If you want people, this is your doorway. If you want them to engage with you, then spend a little time. I have a friend that says, spend your time before you spend your money. So spend your time thinking about how could you package up the content to be in bite-sized amounts. I think that just to finish off this list, be careful of the subject matter expert slippery slope, where the language is written mostly for subject matter experts. It's true that researchers from industry will look on your site for news, science, technologies, etc., but so will the decision makers who may not be those people. They will be business people. So be careful that you're not always just down deep, deep, deep in subject matter expertise, that you're also providing a layer there for the people who will be the quote-unquote people doing the deal or engaging with you to actually make a transaction. I noticed, too, that few mention their customers, very few. Few mention the types. I think there are some great ones, and of course I'm going to show you those, but few mention them. And then there were some that said, contact us, and said, info at. And at the risk of me always getting inundated with millions of emails, I will always put my name, because I want people to do business with me. I want people to connect. So again, you just think about that. There may be certain rules and policies that I'm not familiar with that don't allow that to happen with the federal labs, but I would say that the more personal you make it, the better the result and the impact will be with your website. I just want to make this observation as well. Watch, we call it watch the error 404. Again, nothing distracts or has people leave your site quicker than broken links. So take a look at your pages too and make sure that it doesn't happen to you. Now, little things, big impact. So here's some great ones that I've come across in my travels, and some of these may work for all of you, and maybe pieces of them will work for others. So again, you see this, it's just very easy doing business, right? Doing business. That's as simple as it is. Put a banner and say doing business at PNNL. So it's easy to do, makes a huge impact, and it's a language that the outsiders say, okay. I think the other thing that's really, whoops, sorry, let me just back up. The other thing that's really interesting here is, and this is, again, just organizing. This is, look at the products in the buckets, right? And then the search capabilities to actually search different technologies. That may be an effort that's a little bit, from a cost point of view, maybe out of everyone's reach, but I think it just shows you what we mean by being focused on the customer. What science and technology is of interest to you? That's where we flip that and don't have it be about us, right? So I think that it's fantastic because it's very accessible. So again, and I don't, just to state the obvious, but I don't work with these people. I just am like you. I like to find good examples that showcase, clear and concise, customer-focused marketing. And then here they're making it all about when you come to our site, you're going to have a very customer-focused experience. And if you sell products, like your capabilities, then why not have an expert showcase? Why not just show people these are the talents that we have? Again, coming back to that point where you may have some complex science that really needs to be, have its light shine on it. So put an expert showcase together on your site and make it, again, don't bury it. Make it very easily accessible. And I think that, too, make it easy for people to find the things that they want. These are all hyperlinks on this page. And it's also written, these sentences are written, again, very much in a language that the industry people would be expecting to find. Learn about doing collaborative research with us to solve your specific technical problems or technical challenges. So these are, some of you have talked to me about low-cost marketing. This is just, again, that spending your time and thinking about it from the customer's point of view. And also, here again, just making things bite-sized. I love this because it has a visual, makes, people love to see pictures of people. I know that sounds very simplistic, but it's true, is marrying this with a bit of imagery and then saying, here's a success story, all right? And it's not paragraphs long. It's just boom, 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 right? Key points. And if you're interested in that, you'll now, engage with them to learn more. So, again, I know I'm flipping through a variety here, but I just want to show you, particularly when it comes to the web, if you're on a strict budget, this has got to be the first place where you really dig in and really make an impact, because it will really, I think, change the way that you engage and that people engage with you. the one thing that, as I say, I'm going to really encourage for all these sites is there needs to be, and if it was my choice, if wishes were fishes, they say, I would encourage that there's always an invitation to connect with the office on every page for some reason. And I think it allows you then to build that database that you're looking for, as opposed to just saying when someone wants to engage and quote-unquote buy from you, they'll call you. Get people into your database. Get people who are interested to get content from you, and invite them to do that, I think.
So Wendy, I have a quick question from Tom, who works at NCI, which was your last example. He just wants to say for sure, is that a good example of a success story that would be effective that you have on the screen?
I think it is a good example, Tom. I'll tell you why. Is because I think that what you can do, and I don't have the whole thing on the, I don't have obviously the whole web page grabbed here, is I think it's a great example because if this entices me, then what I should be able to do is download a PDF that lets me read about it. I think the fatal mistake we all make, not just NCI or anyone, the fatal mistake we all make is we take the entire case study and we dump it onto a web page. And that forces someone from industry to have to go through it all, and many times they won't. This way, it's bite-sized, and I can say, you know what they're talking about appeals to me. Actually, I'm interested in, something specific here. They're saying in point 3. So right here on the left, if there was a download of the PDF, that would be fabulous. And I think that's what you're looking for. And so, yeah, I think this is a great idea. And whoever's doing this is, I think, doing the right thing. And as I say, I'm not sure. Maybe you can chime in because I'm not sure if there is a PDF on this site right now or not. But I certainly have it front and center here for people to get. Okay. And as I say, in some cases, I think that, there's just some places where there's the resources to be creative. And again, so can you have an app? Could you showcase all the technologies in an app? Absolutely. And here's an example. And I know there's several others, several federal labs that actually have their own app that people can download and look at all the technology. So, I know that there's the opportunity for being as creative as you like, as long as I say, it fits into that agenda that you're trying to drive in terms of your roadmap. But as I said to you, and I think we're coming towards the end here. So, I said earlier, I think that would I have an iPad app? Maybe I would if I thought that it was going to produce, help me achieve my metrics. So remember, always back to the metric and the target customers. But as I say, I know there's an appetite with people on the call for talking about, okay, Wendy, that's all really wonderful, all that great stuff, but give me some stuff that just generally works in terms of low-cost tools. And so, here's my list of things. And again, I preface this by saying, I'm really cheap. I don't like to spend money, and I don't care even when I was a VP. I don't even like to spend other people's money if it's not getting me a return. I mean, I'm measured on that. So I want to do things that are going to be high impact. And so here's my 8 things that, if I was in an office that doesn't want to spend a lot of money like me, what would I be doing? And so, as I said, you can guess. The first thing I would do is really tune up your website, fine-tune it, and create opportunities throughout every page. Well, let me back up. Make sure that the content now reflects your core messages for your target customers. Don't tell everything on your website, right? Make it engaging and put it into bite-sized amounts. Make it such that people now want to give you their email. People say content is king now. It is, and it always will be. I mean, content is the lifeblood of the Internet, rich content, good content. So if you can build great, engaging content that speaks to your target customers, you'll have some secret sauce there. So fine-tune your website, make it engaging, and make it invite people in. You know, your doorway. You're inviting people to join you. Make them sign up. Give them lots of chances, not just one place. Give it everywhere, and offer them value for that. And just a word on that. If you fine-tune your website and you start to put these sign-ups for people to sign up, that's so you can send them rich content. That's not just so you constantly email them. People don't want to be spammed. Send them rich content, and they will continue to want to be part of your community. And again, I practice this, folks. I don't email my database of people and bombard them. But I want them to know that when I touch them, meaning when I email out, it will be high-value content. And so if you want to attract people to license your technologies, do CRADAS, and do things like this, yes, you need to get them into your database, but you also need to care and feed them. And caring and feeding them with rich content, rich examples, showcase your experts, profile case studies. That's what I mean by rich content. And yes, that costs money in terms of people, but it's, again, it's the question of everything is an investment. It's people, people and time and money. And so fine-tuning that website to me is the goal. The other thing I think that we underestimate is just the co-marketing opportunities with associations. So Chris, coming back to your point for lead gen, for me, I would be in with the associations, the working groups, the industry networks and clusters that represent the technologies and science that are key to you. Volunteer on those committees. Be, in taking your success stories and getting them published. People, again, these groups want content. They want success stories. Put your content into their newsletters. And find ways, if you can, to showcase your experts or do a joint webinar, participate on a panel of a webinar that they are doing. You'd be surprised how much you will cultivate relationships with people in your industry and build your database through associations like this. You don't have to, again, don't go for 10 associations. Pick a manageable number and start, get out there. Get involved. I'd much rather see you, from a marketing point of view, be involved with 2 or 3 associations, actively involved, doing things with them, than to be spending a lot of time worrying about, say, one of the other vehicles we saw on our spaghetti list. These are people. It's about relationships and about cultivating in your particular target areas those kinds of relationships. And you'll get a quality database out of that for sure. They have breakfasts, they have lunches, they have their own webinars, and these groups, like I say, are always looking for rich, insightful technology overviews and cases of success, etc. So you can leverage a lot through these associations. And I think also I've had a lot of success with this advisory board that I mentioned earlier, and it doesn't have to be an advisory board that you might think is going to rule on like a board of directors. This is just a customer. Invite your customers to participate as sounding boards with you. It could be just hearing the customer insights. You might meet once a quarter. They come to your facility. Again, like number 4, hosting an event at your office, making it real and inviting your target kinds of people. And if you don't have a big list, go to those associations. Go to, if you want, even go to investment groups and go to a good cross-section of associations. Invite people to see, I always say, see, touch, and taste your office. What are you about? Put some big posters up showcasing the technologies. These are not hugely expensive things to do, but they make a tremendous impact, as I say, in terms of, creating this relationship between you, your office, and the target sectors that you want to be seen as a supplier to, so, or as a partner with. So making it real and personal. You know, I'm thinking of one example in Europe of a lab that actually hosts a luncheon every, twice a year I think they do it, and they invite like 50 of the most promising types of companies that they want to do business with. Some they've already done business with, so you want some of those, right, because they're great to put at a table. And you don't have to have, and I'm sorry, I want to be careful of the time here, you don't have to have a big fancy facility here, even if you just want to do something simple. But again, you'll get a tremendous amount of mileage out of those kinds of events. And you'll also get a tremendous amount of mileage about if you have someone in your office that can be a speaker and can actually start to, be out there in the industry associations and conferences and be talking about your lab and the types of things that you're doing. And because you will showcase someone there who says, we want to do business with you, right? There's a whole lot of subliminal messages that go on when you use someone speaking about the exciting things that are happening in your lab, and profiling your people. We talk about success stories, profiling people. If you're selling capabilities of people and you're doing CRADAS and things like that, and making it tangible for the industry to see, they have someone like this, right, who's doing, and just even if you say, well, they already know that, reminding them, right, it's a reason to touch, we call it, touching out on email. And all of this, as I say, in number 7 is about investing in relationships. So, again, for me, I would rather be looking at very targeted, focused kinds of activities like this to make a substantial impact with some key targets, like some key target audience groups. If you want to be in a wider, you want a broad brush general awareness, then you're going to use the social media. So then you're going to use things like Twitter. You're going to use LinkedIn, by the way. Whoever mentioned they're using the message board on LinkedIn, that's fabulous. And fabulous in terms of building relationships and getting connected. We have again, sorry to bombard you, but we have a technique here I call top 5, next 10. Top 5 customers we want to have, right, by the end of the 90 days, next 10 after that. And so it's just a catchphrase, but it's about identifying the best, most ideal relationships. And I think for the federal labs, for the tech transfer offices, this could be a nice technique to be able to say, who is it that we want? The actual name of the company or the organization out there that you want to actually get an agreement with. Or you think that you have a piece of science that just lines up beautifully with a certain pharma. Well, okay, so are we going to invest in relationships, and we're going to see if we can push along and find someone in that organization that we can connect with. And LinkedIn can be a really fabulous tool for doing that in terms of just that, I'm sure we're all familiar with LinkedIn, but it is one I think that can pay big dividends because we're talking about business relationships. And finally,
sorry, we did have a question about social media that I thought would be good for this time. Al wanted to know, what you think about the best ways to measure success on social media, if there are specific measurements you use about views and, likes and all that sort of thing, or if there's anything you think is a misleading benchmark.
Again, I think that the concept of likes and things with Facebook and stuff is, again, it's a very qualitative type of measure. So I think we have to be a bit careful about that. As I say, I think, Facebook, Twitter, and I've had some, we're using Twitter. I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of Twitter, and I only say that because I don't know that it feeds my metric. But people here think we should use it. We're not. I'll be honest with you. It's not a big bus. It's just something that's there. It's one of my spaghetti, right? Bad habit. So I think when it comes to measuring these things, it does come down to, that broader, do we have awareness? I don't think, I do think it's useful and healthy to have awareness of your organization. But let me be maybe a little little blunt here. I think that at a very high level, NIH, USDA, EPA, the umbrella mother organization definitely is dealing with different issues because it's about public policy and it's about dealing with society, and I say dealing with, but I mean being serving society. There's a whole bunch of different objectives there. Awareness is key. It's got to be one of them. And so measuring there in terms of, people will look at the Google search engine rankings and they'll look at the, as you say, the likes on Facebook. And I think those are all nice measurements of awareness. But when you talk about technology commercialization, which is, more in our theme today, and you're talking about how do we move, with the presidential memorandum, how do we move more technologies into the hands of industry and get them to engage with the labs to actually make that happen, I think it needs different marketing tools because I don't know that it can be just awareness. I think the bigger lab does the job of awareness, but what we have to do now is, kind of the grassroots, which is we've got to bring them in and get relationships established and, to be blunt, do deals. So, I think that I don't think the metrics that are being used to look at Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and, things like that are bad. I just think that they may be the wrong vehicles to accomplish the metrics that we have to accomplish. So, and as I say, but that's me. Maybe it's you too, but it's certainly me. So as I say, so let me kind of wrap up, and then if we want to have, I know people will want to get off the call, so and then we can have some more discussion if people want to stay on. So in summary, then, I think that for me, I would, kind of sum up by taking the 10 rules of marketing. I remember back when I was a professor, there was this great book. It was called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. Written by Al Rise and Trout, I think it was. Anyways, there's a fun book, but it really, I think it was quite impactful too, because it was just like this. So I think that first of all, get an envelope and carry it in your coat pocket about what are those core metrics, those key ones that you and your team are trying to drive towards, and get the bigger umbrella ones, and then work on the buses for the specific 90-day ones. I really do believe, guys, that there's just nothing replaces being in the customer's shoes, and if that means that just buying some lunches with people that you've already done deals with, and asking questions, not just going for the sole purpose of listening to them talk about, what would they expect in a relationship with a lab like yours, what's important to them in the way business is done, getting as much insight from them and on as many different occasions as you can. Nothing replaces that. So if you use that template that I posted up online about profile your customer, if you could have a nice filled-in template for that, you'd have a nice understanding, I think, of who are these people and what really matters to them. I think it's important to also know who is not your customer. So while we always talk about who is, who should you be focusing on, are you focusing on some of the people that you shouldn't be focused on, that they're not really the target customers for you? So a different way to look about it. And also to get to this point where it's a solution focus. What's the solution that that customer wants to have from your lab? And does it embody a number of different capabilities that maybe to date you've kept as individual kind of siloed capabilities, and you could actually bundle them into a solution? Bold strokes, that's, again, with this less is more, bold strokes make some big impacts on a few key things, and keep repeating them. And fuel your office. I mean, yes, I can see that some of you are keen on CRM tools. That's fantastic. Get that behavior woven in there as well, and start to have everybody focused on that as a metric too, in terms of having quality people come into your system. And don't fall into the trap of we need to have 10,000 people in our database or we're just not doing our job. No, good quality prospects in there. I'd much rather have 1,000 quality than 10,000 full of a whole bunch of stuff. Drive your big buses, right? So whatever number of buses, I wouldn't say, rule of thumb, 3, but don't get into maybe 5 or 6. It can become quite unruly. Put your resources together to actually create some impact around 2 or 3. Use the pillars of your messaging, right? Stay committed to that. Try not to stray off your messaging. Stick on that 3-word and try to use the template, as I say, to help you. The templates are just designed to force you into, this kind of thinking, right? So that's really what templates and tools do, is they just help you get on your way with these things as a behavior. And of course, the 90-day horizon for the programs, and it's kind of like an ostrich. You get your head up and you look, and then you get your head back down, and you keep working away, and then you get your head up at the end of 90 days, and you say, should we keep going? I think that's the 90-day discipline to kind of measure and say, is this working for us? Are we making an impact? Do we want to keep going? And just finally, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to put as number 10. I fought with this one, so I think, always look for that point of difference. Look for your unique assets. Look for what makes you stand out from, other places where you're, even what makes you different from the customer's own lab. Look for your points of difference. I think that they will really be part of that core message pillar that you want to create. Whew. So I know that's a lot to take in, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. If some of these things, first of all, of course, we can have more questions. So here's where you can go to access the templates. They are all just sitting there. There's again, there's no sign up. You just go there and download them, and you can share them with as many people as you like. That's totally fine by me. I have more templates, though, so if you do want more, you should just email me directly. I have an online library that we have, but it does require us to register you into that with an access code. So if you want to have templates related to a number of these areas, you can just email me directly anytime after the session, and I'll be happy to kind of set you up and give you an access code into the online library, and you can have a peek around and see if there's some other things that you're looking for that might work for you. Okay? So let me back up here. Oh, I guess I should leave that there so people can get the link, right, Lauren?
That would probably be a good plan.
Okay. So as I say, I am going to be with the FLC in, now, Lauren, what's the date of the conference?
April 21st is the training, intensive training courses in Rockville, Maryland.
And so you may be tired of all my nattering on now, but if you do change your mind and you want to come to the conference in April, I think we're going to try to, depending on how many of you also, are attending there, who knows, maybe we can do something of picking up on some of your roadmaps in that session and, making it a working session to look at, kind of maybe either elements of this. I guess what I'm saying is, if you want to do more like this, if there's now you would say, yeah, but I'd really like to do more on this topic. I'm not saying I'm an expert in all areas, but you should certainly tell Lauren that, so that if it's not me, maybe it's somebody else that could actually help to kind of shape a session. Yeah, so just talk to us and let us know if there's things that we can do to help feed you a little bit more of the things that you're looking for in terms of this marketing area. I guess I'll throw it back to you, Lauren.
All right. Looks like we have about 2, maybe 3 questions. Do we have time? I don't know if people feel like sticking around a couple minutes. Do you have time to answer those last few, Wendy?
Oh, yeah, I do. I do.
Okay, wonderful.
But others should feel if they don't want to hang around if they don't have to. I am a long-winded talker, am I not?
Well, if they want to leave and hear the last few, we are recording this, so they can just hop on to the last, 5 minutes of the webinar recording if they want to duck off. But I do want to make sure we get some of these people's questions. They've been waiting very patiently. So we have one from Lewis. How do you identify and contact a decision maker in a larger company since this information isn't usually available on their site?
We go through this as well, Lewis. it's the million-dollar question. But I think here's what you know. Here's what I would do. The first thing is that there's nothing better. I'll give you the ideal situation. There's nothing better than if you are introduced to someone. And so, again, I think if people aren't using LinkedIn as a one vehicle, then that's a good vehicle to try to help identify some of those people. But that doesn't always happen, right? I think that the other thing is to you have to do a little bit of forensics, I think, in terms of identifying who is the VP or the new product manager, whoever it might be that you're trying to contact. And I think that there's nothing wrong with contacting the organization directly, and just looking for insights, or or even that's the best way I can find. I mean, I know someone in our business development here that does that regularly, which is just call them up and say, I'm looking to speak to the person who is responsible for X. And again, it's not the ideal, and that's why you do want to get some marketing, some of your marketing vehicles at work for you on your website is to get, there is some element of cold calling, but the other side of it is making sure that you can push out content through the, because they should be interested in what you have, right? Like, not that they're going to buy from you, but if they are your target, there is something that you have that they should be interested in. So it's to get the table flipped a little bit where people are coming to your site and signing up, and you're calling those people then to follow up. But if you've got, for example, like my top 5 next 10, I would say then you just have to be on the lookout for those people. And you have to go to conferences that they attend. You try to meet someone from that organization. That happened to me recently, Louis. I met someone from the organization. I don't think it's private for me to say. It was a big organization, BASF, and I wanted to meet a certain person there. Well, I finally ran into someone at a conference that actually knew them, but it didn't happen overnight. So you have to be focused and persistent, and sometimes you just have to phone up and see. Hopefully, can you actually get get someone to put you through to have a conversation. But I caution you on that because, again, it's about cultivating relationships. So anyways, not a magical answer, but the realities of what we face whenever we're trying to get in touch with people that we think are our best targets, and they just don't know us yet.
Okay, let's see. Next question. Are there stats to tell us that apps work?
Are there stats to tell us that apps work? That's a good question. I think that there's, again, I guess I'd have to understand the question a little more. When you say apps work, do you mean that they work in terms of engaging people? I guess that's the only thing. Maybe we can get a little more on that one, Lauren. I'm not really sure what the question, where it's coming from.
Sure. Let's see. That comes from Tom. Tom, I don't know if you want to clarify. In the meantime, maybe while you're thinking about it, would you mind if I ask another question? Let's see. We have one other question. Oh, also from Tom. Do you ever continue to use a bus, even though it doesn't provide a positive outcome for a specific product, but may provide information that over time might help develop a different bus?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think, there's, for us right now, we have, it's funny that you mentioned that, Tom. We have a bus right now. We had a bus this quarter that's just ending for a blog. And we launched the blog, and we're committed to, to that bus. I would say that we're not getting the metric that we would like on that bus. But we're going to continue with it because you're right. We're having that exact experience, which is it's giving us something else. And not to be too abstract here, what it's giving us is we, as many of you know, we have a book called So What Who Cares Why You, and we are launching a new book next year. And you can translate this into your own example. I'm just just so I can give you something tangible, I'll use this example. And so what we found that the blog's giving us is not giving us interest expressed by new target audiences, which we were trying to cultivate, but it is giving us great commentary on topics for inclusion in the new book. So we're going to continue with it, and it's not, like I say, giving us the strongest, as much of an impact that we really wanted, but it's important information that we're getting, and so we're going to continue with it. But I do also say that doesn't mean, and this is what I told the team, this doesn't mean that I'm not still interested in the first metric. So I'll work on the second metric. They need to still continue to pursue it for the first metric. But you're right. I think it's being open to that. But again, you know, for us here, we don't have a lot of resources. We're very small, so we have to be. This is why I say you have to keep people focused on the goal line, because sometimes you can start to get into a bit of uncertainty, and people are now not clear again as to what they're supposed to do. So I'm a big believer in just keeping people focused. So that's the only caution I'd have on that one.
Okay, so we do have a clarification on the mobile app question.
Okay.
The question is, are you aware from other groups that mobile apps are working for marketing?
Oh, yeah. I think that, but what I've really found for only the experience that I've had, and again, this is a little bit of Canadian and Europe and U.S. Labs. The thing where I'm seeing apps used is much like you saw with the NASA app, is I think it's more of a vehicle to keep the relationship, keep people engaged in the relationship. So it's not a vehicle you use to maybe entice new people. It's a vehicle that you use to continue to feed. You know, I call care and feeding. You can care and feed your audience with that app and continue to showcase, because it's now a mobile technology, much, I guess, like the web is, but still this is just a very, you know, interactive technology now on an app that you can feed that content out to. So I think it is working. I think for that purpose, they're not cheap to build is the thing. So as much as, yes, it's an app, it's again that the R&D that goes into it. So I think it's just, again, to really know what it is that you want it to do for you. Because, again, I'm not sure that it's all that different than what you see in terms of the web, but it is, everybody's talking about apps now. So you see people now wanting to show, it's just like YouTube channels, people showing up with YouTube channels because it's the latest thing. I think video is fantastic. We didn't talk about video, not to digress from the apps, but I just want to say a word about video. You know, people will sometimes think that, you know, we made this mistake. We did a lot of green screen video. It was very expensive. We could have done video at our desk with our PCs and our camera. And, you know, again, I think technology transfer offices could do this, and it'd be fabulous. We did this with the European Space Agency with a project that we did with them, and we took their people and we put their people in the videos, and that has been unbelievably successful. They were just shot at their desks, cost nothing. We put them up on the web as part of a tool where people are engaging with industry, and they said, you know, just like your technology transfer licensing officers, same people in the European Space Agency, same challenge. They want to talk to industry and put people on video, very low cost, and it's so personal, and it makes that connection. And the person talks for 2 minutes about, the person in the office talks for 2 minutes about the technologies that they're involved with, type of work that they do with industry, and they invite people to contact them. And it's very powerful. So I know that doesn't answer your question specifically, Tom, but it reminded me that that's, you know, there's some things there is, you know, don't get caught that you have to spend a lot of money because those videos have been gold. So, but on the app one, that's the limit of the exposure that I've had, is to look at them as vehicles to really push out technologies in a you know, dynamic way through the mobile mediums with iPads, etc.
Okay, I think we've hit the end of our list of questions. So on behalf of the E&C committee, Wendy, I really want to thank you for doing this webinar today.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. I thank everyone for their questions and for their participation. It's always a goal to try to engage people in these kinds of conversations. And hopefully I've been able to give you some tools and some techniques to use. But as always, folks, don't hesitate to contact me if a question comes up later, or if you're struggling with one of the templates that I've posted up there and you want a little bit of sounding board. Just feel free to give me a call or email me. Oh, I realized I didn't put my phone number on there. Oh, I did. Sorry. Yes, I did. Okay. So yeah, just feel free to call me or email me. I'd be happy to help you.
Well, wonderful. You've all been a great audience, and we hope that you're all leaving here today with a blueprint for your own offices. So please don't forget to take a moment to give us your feedback in the short survey that's going to appear when I end the webinar in a few minutes. So thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.